Okay, folks, welcome to another edition of the D2 Live. As always, we're joined by is it three? National
Four.
road titles?
You said it's four, but that's okay. I can live with it.
Four national road titles, Johnny Trevorrow, and Olympic gold medalist Scotty McGrory. Fellas, a lot to unpack on this episode. Why don't we open the batting with Liège? What were your thoughts there, Scotty?
Well, we had two, didn't we? So the women's Liège for the fourth edition of that. So Lizzie Deignan got the win there, and Aussie Grace Brown in second place, only 9 seconds behind. So great ride by her. Her teammate Annemiek van Vleuten was my favourite for it, but still injured, trying to come back from that. So what a great ride by Grace. And for the guys, well, wasn't that? It was a catastrophe for Julien Alaphilippe, the world champion, doing the old victory salute a little bit too early and then getting pipped on the line. In the end, it didn't really matter because he threw a hook that got him relegated to fifth. Hershey is probably the one that's most disappointed because Mark Hershey would have definitely won that race if he hadn't been thrown the old hook from Julien Alaphilippe. But hey, got to be happy for Primoz Roglic. You know, I think everyone was feeling for him after the Tour de France, finishing second. So great for him to come away with a good win at the end of the year.
It must be a bitter pill to swallow, obviously, for Hershey. I mean, how many times did that happen in your career where you got chopped and you had another iffy story?
It happened a couple of times. We should be talking about 5 Australian titles, but anyway, that's another story. But
you know what, John? Before you go on, when you were introduced as 3, then you corrected it to 4. I was going to jump in and say, well, probably could have been 5 or 6. But yeah. And you're right.
But you know, it would have been a really good finish. Hershey was looking set, but you know, we've got the world champion going for it. So those two would have raced it out. I would have put my money on Hershey, but it would have been close, I reckon, between those two. But you know what? It was a bad enough hook, but it was that combined with just the way that Alaphilippe rides. I mean, he is all over the bloody bike, and wasn't like a sprinter throwing a desperate hook. It was just over-accentuated by the way he rides. But it was a fantastic finale. Just felt for Adam Yates because I know he was really set for that. And he crashed. You talk about young Jai. Jai went down as well. And the Olympic champion, they all went down when they hit one of those centre poles, traffic signs, and put them out. But yeah, fantastic race. And again, as you were saying, Scotty, Grace Brown, who actually stormed home. She just ran out of road, so to speak. She closed like a minute and a half in those last few kilometres. So she was storming up. So fantastic ride in a monument.
Well, sorry, Dan. Yeah. Had she got there, Lizzie Deignan, I think, would have beaten her in the sprint anyway. If they'd spent a couple of kilometres together, Lizzie is definitely the faster of the two riders. So, but still, what a great ride it was from her. John, you should be a defence lawyer because trying to justify that hook from Julien Alaphilippe because of his riding style, he started on the barriers on the right-hand side of the road, finished in the middle of the road. That's one hell of a riding style, mate.
Yeah, that's true. But the riding style just accentuated it. He was moved out. He was on the barriers, but he had to move out because he had to go past the Bahrain Marina guys.
Imagine the
spectators. He had to go past the spectators, and they could have had COVID, so he was just giving himself a little bit of social distancing.
Okay, I'm not defending him because he should have been rubbed out. It was no doubt about that. But anyway, you know where I'm coming from.
Yeah. Could you imagine the defence where he goes, mate, that's just my riding style. I've been doing it like my whole career. Like, you know, come on, give me a break. But it does beg the question, Scotty, and you fed us through a couple of classic times where riders have done the old two-hand salute a little bit too early. A famous one was this one, the Milan San. Oh, what have I done there? I've pressed the wrong button. Milan San Remo. And this was Zabel, where he's gone the early crow. And you can see just on the line there, Oscar Freire goes the lunge and bang, loses it by a whisker. That obviously was probably one of the more famous ones. And Zabel, you've really struggled to get over that.
Oh, that was extraordinary. The fact that, so with this one, Alaphilippe was way in front, you know, threw the hands up, and Roglic has sort of kind of come from nowhere. So it was a bit unexpected. But Zabel, they were side by side with Oscar Freire. You know, it was such a a bold move to try and celebrate. He wanted the photo. He was
Look at the photo there. Like he's looking down at the wheel, thinking, "Oh no,
Oh, shit.
what have I done?"
If you play that again, Dan, there's actually a line across the road about a metre, a couple of metres before. I reckon.
Defence lawyer John Trevorrow.
I reckon Zabel's thrown to the wrong line. You have a look.
All right, hang on. You're really testing my skill set here, Johnny. All right. So where do you want to go from?
Okay, go from here. That's perfect. And you see him going. There he goes. He's about to. He got nearly half a leg.
I'll try and get rid of that.
Good.
Yep, there we go.
Looking good. It's looking good. He's got it. Here's the line. He throws, but it wasn't the line.
Oh,
There's
right. Yeah. Okay. He thought it was there, and then it was just.
It is. About another, 5 metres further on. Anyway, that was just a thought. I only thought of it when you put it up before. But there
it was a crack in the road, but I don't think that was just a crack in the road.
Well, another famous one you were talking about, Scotty, was Simon Clark back in 2015. We've got some vision of that, but Clarkey actually explains afterwards that it might not been what the commentators thought. Let's have a look at that.
And Orica Green Edge keep it. Clark in the sprint for the second place, and I think he's going to do it. Simon Clark will wear the pink jersey at the end of the day. Another good day for Orica Green Edge. Matthews has lost start. I think he thinks he's won the stage, though.
Pink jersey for you now. How do you feel?
Yeah, look, you saw the emotion crossing the line. I was just stoked to keep the jersey in the team. I knew Cannondale was still up the road, but I just couldn't hold the emotion in that to have been able to take the jersey and keep it in Orica for another day.
So he was just celebrating getting the jersey. There was no miscommunication there.
Yeah, okay. We'll go with that one then. Yeah, so we had
there's another defence lawyer.
David de Formolo, which we didn't see in the clip, but David de Formolo was I don't know, probably 25 seconds up the road, one on his own. And I've been in a situation that's kind of similar to that, not the Giro, of course, but where you forget it. You're just trying to win whatever sprint you're in, whatever the bunch is in. You know it's for some sort of result. And there would have been 500 metres before that, Simon would have been definitely thinking, okay, this is for second. I know that. But then in the heat of the moment, the adrenaline, throw in the possibility of taking the jersey, then he might have just forgotten. In the last millisecond, he forgot that David de Formolo was up the road and he thought he was celebrating the win of the stage. Good story. Good story.
Another thing that's happened a few times is when they go into a town at a Grandy and then they have to do circuit laps. That's bit a number of riders where they've forgotten.
There was a ripper.
No.
There was a ripper there.
I am guilty of it. So it was Wayne McCartney, so national team, I think 1988, so the Olympic team in 88. We went and raced it's prepared in Italy on the road before we went to Germany to prepare for the track at the Olympics. And we came into town, and because what happens with those circuits, often you have the 10Ks to go, 5Ks to go, 3, 2, 1, but then you've got the circuit to do. So you come back around again for those kilometres to the finish. And Wayne, we did this incredible lead out. God, we were good, so strong. Wayne McCartney was first, Steve McLeod was second, and I was third. We were across the line, hands in the air to the sound of the bell. 1 lap to go. Absolute idiots.
Yeah. I did that at my first Sun Tour, mate. I had the monster lead me out. And he said to me, "It's 1 to go. It's 2 to go." I said, "No, this is the bell, mate." And I talked him into it. And he did me the greatest lead out of all time. And he's still never forgiven me for it. But anyway.
You talked him into it. See the theory of the defence lawyer, it rings true here. You talked him into it.
No, I did. I'll take it. But while we're talking about it, because we've got memories happening, my first international tour, it was the Scottish Milk Race in 1970. So I got over the Commonwealth Games, just a 20-year-old, just turned 21. And the Scottish Milk Race was, and the World Titles were in England that year. So all the big teams, all the top teams and all the best riders. Anyway, we had this stage into some little village on the coast, and I've won the kick in, and I thought I'd won the stage. I had hands up, all of that. And Ryszard Sikorsky, the world champion, had jumped away. I actually had a fall, so I'll blame that, and didn't know he jumped away. And I saw him riding back towards me. I thought, oh, how many of them were there? But luckily it was only the one, so I did run second. But I remember going from top of the heap to bad luck.
It's
you feel like a goose. You do feel like a goose, but yeah.
As we always say, keep the questions and comments coming in. Jenny Whitehead, big fan of the show. Good evening, guys. G'day, Jenny. Gary Ross says Alaphilippe deserved what happened yesterday. They shouldn't have relegated him just to make him do the walk of shame on the podium. I think, as we said, it was a pretty clear chop. Now, Samantha wants to know, how bad are Adam's injuries? Do you know, Iffy?
Yeah. Yep. He got a bike and everything and got back on the road, but he lost that much time and they were going, so he just hopped in the car. He's not too bad. And the guy who just went before, Gary Ross, he's a pom. Well, forgive me for that. And he helped me out. I met him. He worked at the airport on the construction years ago when I was going over to Ireland, and missed my plane. And he helped me out. And he turned out to be a bike fan. And then he came over the Tour de France a couple of years ago, helped me out again. Had to bring a radio that I left in London, picked it up for me, brought it over to England. So he's a really good bloke.
Oh, good on you, Gaz. Keep firing in the questions and comments, mate. And we've got one here that's a bit left of centre. Andrew wants to know, do you think any World Tour teams will not make it through COVID times due to loss of sponsorship?
Well, one for sure. In NTT, there's one.
Yeah, and look, CCC was another.
Yeah.
You know, it's an easy way out for a company that's not getting the marketing that they were hoping for, perhaps. And if they're struggling themselves, like CCC is a shoe company. You know, if people aren't buying shoes, they're not going into retail stores in Poland. It's where they're based. Then obviously they have to think about what they're going to have to cut. We saw that with the Wallabies. The Wallabies lost Qantas as a sponsor. And they've been their sponsor for so long, and
20-something years. Yeah,
it's incredible, isn't it? You know, but we understand why. Like Qantas, they haven't been flying, so first thing you're going to drop is sponsorship. So for now, it's those two teams. But then that's been to the benefit of the Wanty Gobert group. You know, the Belgian Pro Continental team. They're going to buy the license of CCC. They step up into World Tour next year, which means young Bendigo boy Alexander Evans, who sort of had a great ride last year, won a stage of Tour l'Avenir, got himself a Pro Conti contract. He's going to be World Tour next year because he's in that team. So, there's benefits for some people. But, I think next year is going to be very different for everyone. I know this from television. I know this from, like, I'm commentating the Olympic Games. We're supposed to be doing that this year, doing it next year now for Channel 7. And the cost cutting that's going on around all of the sporting events and the commentary. Like anyone that watches the footy, AFL, this weekend we had obviously Bruce McAvaney, one of the greats of commentary. He has not left Adelaide all year, yet he's commentated, the footy. Normally he would be flying into all the different venues. He had, I think, James Brayshaw commentating out of Melbourne while McAvaney was commentating out of Sydney. So these are the things that are going on behind the scenes because of COVID and because of the financial restrictions that come with that. And that's going to go right through next year as well. A lot of sponsorship will be lost.
For sure. Now, as we said at the top of the show, we've got a massive episode of the Detour, and we've got an absolute legend, Iffy, of Australian cycling. He's the first winner of a stage at the Giro. Do you want to give us a bit of an intro for our next guest? Because he's waiting in the lobby.
Oh, fantastic. Well, Michael Wilson, a superstar. I can remember him racing around at the same time as me, but he was amateur when I was pro.
It's always about you, John. Keep it about Michael.
Okay. But he is a legend and won an Australian road title by something like 9 minutes, and he was only 20, I think. And all the big hitters of the amateur world, the Sansonettes, everyone there, real wet, cold day, and he put 9 minutes into them. But absolute legend.
Here he is.
Here he is. G'day, Michael.
Hey, John, waiting in the lobby here.
Yeah. Well, not now, mate. You're on air with the big four now. Now, I've got to tell about Michael. I had trouble sending him an email because he spells Michael Michael instead of EAL. So it's the other way around. The only Michael I've ever seen like that. And I'm not sure. I haven't worked out why it's like that, but that's the way it is.
I think my mum couldn't spell, John.
Well, that happened to Matthew Heyman as well. He's meant to have 2 T's, but he's only got 1 T. And I said, what's going on there? He said, yeah, no, Dad stuffed it up when he was joining the paperwork.
But I'm not saying that Michael's mother can't spell, because she'll give me a walloping, because I can remember we were tour of Tassie a couple of years ago, and I was doing a radio interview, and the guy said, tour of Tassie. I said, oh, yeah, look, I won it in 1978. And Mrs. Wilson called in to complain. He did not. Michael won it in 1978. It turns out she was right. I won it in 1979. So there you go. So I'm not going to say anything against Michael.
So, Michael, yeah, thanks for joining the show, mate. Like, give us a bit of a backstory for the people that are tuning in that, don't know, like myself, too much about cycling pre sort of mid-90s. Tell us about how you got into the sport back in the early days.
Oh, I think it's just like a lot of people back then. It was just family history, and my dad and my granddad were both cyclists. So when I got to a certain age, I, rather than get into trouble roaming the streets, my mum bought me a bike, and then away we went.
And what point did you think, geez, I'm actually pretty good at this? Was it early on?
No, it took a few years to work out that I could actually win races. So I was probably 15. I won the national schoolboy championship at 15. So really, I sort of started thinking a bit further ahead at that stage, I think. But you didn't have there was no internet or anything like that. So we just got our monthly cycling magazine, and we could look at the stars in Europe and see photos of them and dream of one day doing something like that. So, a bit different.
And in the 1970s in Tassie, you would have been riding track as well as the road. And I remember that you actually I think you ran second in an Australian pursuit title on the track as well.
Yeah, and that was Olympic selection year, so I probably could have actually made a choice of going with the team pursuit on the track if I wanted to, rather than do the road. But they didn't sort of want you to do both back in those days. We weren't capable, of course.
Now, if he was telling me, oh, mate, Michael, he's got the record. Is it the biggest margin for an Australian title? 9 minutes?
Oh, it'd have to be close. I can't remember any others being similar. But it was a pretty awful looking day. So I don't know if you can see out the back now. It's pretty wet and cold here too. But that day was much wetter and much colder than what we're seeing at the moment. But I think it was something like 2 degrees in Adelaide, in the Adelaide Hills. So it's a pretty tough day.
And how did it come about that you won by so much? I mean, anyone gets to that sort of gap, they might even sit up and wave to the crowd and take it easy, or you just had legs of steel and just gassed it.
Oh, I think I put it down to being a Tasmanian and being used to the cold and wet. So took out a bit.
Look, from what I can remember reading about it, and it was sort of went out 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, and then they had a real hard chase. All the top guys, and they didn't catch anything on him, and they just sort of gave up on winning it and then raced for second. And Michael just kept going and put a huge gap in. But you went over to Europe fairly young. How old were you? Went over to Europe only around about 1920.
Yeah, I went over as part of a national team at 19. Went to the Junior Worlds in America I think I was about 18 or something then, and then 19 went on national team to Holland and to the World Championships there, Valkenburg. And then did the Olympics the next year and then stayed there basically.
Yeah. What was it about Italy, mate? When you eventually started racing, you got your professional contracts. What was it like being an Australian in those early years, just trying to find your way as a professional in Italy?
I was pretty lonely as an Australian. There weren't many of us, not in Italy. There was the odd one would come along and come and go, and but really I was probably the only one at the time. So I had to learn to speak a bit of Italian, and there would have been 1 or 2 Americans and a couple of Poms there, and that was about it. I didn't really have many English-speaking people to speak to. And then when you went to races in other parts of Europe, of course, there'd be meet up with Phil and Alan, and the odd other Australian that was around, but there weren't many of us back in those days.
So there's 18 riders, Australian. Sorry, Johnny, 18 riders from Australia in the Giro this year. That must, for you, seem extraordinary. Where things have come from.
I heard that before, and I couldn't believe it. That's a lot of riders. That must be behind Italy. It must be the biggest representation of any country, I'd imagine.
It is. Yeah, that's correct. That's right. But it definitely wasn't like that back in the old days. But you had nearly 2 years in Italy as an amateur. I saw on your records there, and half a dozen wins. But you were good mates with Jeff Leslie, and you rode. I remember you riding a couple of those 2-up team time trials with Jeff, and you did a really good Baraki and one other.
Yeah, we did the Baraki, and then we also did the Flèche d'Or, which was a similar type of thing, but based in France, and we won that too by quite a margin. I can't remember the exact margin at the moment, but it was similar to the national title win, I think.
So you were living in Italy. Talk us through what it was like to ride your first Giro. I mean, 2 years earlier, you had Iffy on the start line smoking darts. What was the Giro like back in those days?
Well, look, it was a tough race, just like it is now. I mean, any Grand Tour is tough, but you know, I was first year pro, and I mean, I'd only actually raced amateur for 1 year in Italy, so I really I didn't have a lot of experience. Pretty green at the time, which probably doesn't hurt because it means you don't have any fear, really.
And take us through the famous stage 3 of that first Giro you did.
Oh, look, it's one of those days where you everything just went well. You know, I probably sat at the back of the bunch for 220 Ks, and then got told by the director to move up towards the front, and it was an uphill finish, so we sort of had 3 or 4 Ks of solid uphill to get there, and I remember hitting or getting to the front of the group at the start of the climb and being in good position, and then it all just happened, and I just felt good.
And it felt good. I mean, we tried to get the vision of that up again because I've seen it, and Dan couldn't find any decent vision. He found one bit that was a bit grainy. But
let me work it out. I reckon I've got it here somewhere, and I might be able to wingle something.
It'd be great to see it because it wasn't just some mug. It was a bloke named Laurent Fignon who you gave him a coal as you went past him. It was fantastic.
What was the reaction from your team post race? They must have been just absolutely ecstatic.
They were, because my team was actually a new team, so we'd only just started that year. So to win a stage in the Giro was a pretty big deal for a small team.
This is the vision. So you can see coming into the final there. There's
a gap.
Yep, exactly. And then bang.
Yeah.
Thank you, mother, for the rabbits.
Yeah. He tried hard.
Fignon's got nothing on you, mate.
So that must have obviously given you a lot of confidence to have that sort of success so early in your career. What sort of momentum did that give you moving forward?
Oh, well, when that happens, and I got a few other top 5, or a couple of other top 5s in the Giro too. So that year, one on a climb finish up Monte Campione, and another one in a sprint gallop, I think it was. So, you know, you sort of come out of that as a young rider and you think, oh, this is pretty easy. You know, I should be able to win a stage or 2 in all of these races whenever I want to try. But, of course, it never happens again. So, like that, not quite that easy. It's funny that, you know, it often happens. But, you know, it sort of gave me a good grounding and something to move forward on anyway at the time.
Now, we've got a question that's come in from Stuart McIntosh. He says, how did Michael pay the bills when riding as an amateur for a year in Italy? It must have been a tough existence.
Oh, no, I wouldn't say that. I mean, look, I was lucky in a way because Jeff Leslie helped me out a bit in that early couple of years. And we had a team in Italy, and the amateur teams in Italy at the elite level were pretty well organised and pretty well funded. So they basically put us up in a hotel, and I used to just eat in the hotel, and they provided all the equipment and everything. All I had to do was come up with an airfare to get over there, really, and then they looked after the rest. I think we even got paid a bit of bit of a little small wage each month. You know, wouldn't have been much, but enough to buy an ice cream and, you know, go out for a meal once every. So it wasn't too bad. It wasn't too hard.
Was there a big community, though? You're talking about, obviously, Phil Anderson, Alan Piper and the likes. Did you guys sort of build your own little community of Aussies over there, or was it hard to sort of stay connected pre-internet and things like that?
Oh, yeah, pre-internet was pretty difficult. I mean, we didn't, it's obviously different to now, but we used to catch up a bit and have a bit of a chat at all the races and that. And but we were living quite a long way apart. And back in Italy in those days, the Italian scene was a lot stronger than it is now. So we had enough racing in Italy to basically not have to go anywhere else if you didn't want to. Some teams didn't leave Italy for the whole year. So there was plenty of professional racing in Italy, but we used to go off and do some of the classics in Belgium and Holland and other races around Europe as well, you know, just to get a bit of experience and dip our toe in the water.
Sorry to interrupt there, Michael. Just the fact that you know, like if you look at the riders these days, no one wants to talk about the older you are, the harder it was back then in the day. But you mentioned, you know, how there were very few Australians around, a couple of, you know, English-speaking riders that were there. But did you feel, or do you know of riders that came from Australia, went over, may have had the talent to be at the top level, but just couldn't put up with just the fact that they had to sacrifice everything and move overseas? It's very different to today, isn't it, where the guys go to Girona and the training bunches are just full of English-speaking riders. You know, it's almost like a home away from home. Very, very different for your generation. That was kind of like a natural cull of riders that had the mindset to be able to be strong enough to go all the way with it.
Yeah, it was. It was a pretty lonely experience. I was lucky. I had my wife, Mary, was there pretty much right from the start. And our son, Joshua, was born in 1983. So we had our little family there, and we'd have visits from other Australians from time to time, and that was always exciting. But apart from that, we lived a fairly isolated life in Italy. You know, it was even, you know, making a phone call to Australia was, well, that would take up most of your monthly wage, or if you could get the phone call through. I mean, phones weren't very reliable back in those days, so there was virtually very little communication back to Australia for us. So it was a lonely existence, and it was really tough. You just had to make the best of it, and if you were that sort of person, you'd get by, and if you weren't, then you'd just probably go back home with the tail between your legs.
You raced up until, I say, 1991. When did you know that, you know, your career was coming towards the back end?
Probably about start of that year. I sort of started to. I made the silly mistake of actually setting up a business in Australia, and it was causing a lot of stress, and times were pretty tough back in Australia in those days. In hindsight, I wouldn't have done it. I mean, better off leaving that to when your career's well and truly over. And I got distracted a lot and started to lose motivation and confidence and all that sort of stuff. And just sort of the drive went away, and it was time to go home.
How did you find the post-retirement? Because you talk to a lot of professional athletes, you know, they sometimes pigeonhole themselves as they identify as a cyclist or whatever. How did you go post-cycling with all of that?
Well, I can fully understand that. It's a bit like post-traumatic stress, I suppose, or something. You know, you finish your career and you've got to move on with something. I mean, I was probably lucky. We had a business, and we sort of had that to keep us going, and worked hard at it for a few years. But I can imagine, you know, finishing and finding it really difficult. I mean, that wouldn't be quite common.
Well, you're fleeting past on the business. It was actually an amazing vineyard that you own, Michael. Did you learn any of those talents in Italy, or was it something you had to learn when you got home?
I learned how to drink the stuff. Well, we used to ride around through the vineyards, and it was a really attractive place to be, and it just seemed like a nice way to do something, because being a cyclist, an inside job working in an office is probably not really an option. I mean, face it, you like being outdoors. And really, at the end of the day, when you're making wine and you're still chasing gold, silver, and bronze medals, so it's the same old thing, isn't it? Really.
So you only got it's only a couple of years ago that you sold the winery, but I remember going in there, and it was just a wonderful setup you had there.
Yeah, we built it up from a tiny little shed to a bit bigger shed, I suppose. And I used to make a bit of wine there, and I quite enjoyed it. Loved it, really. I mean, did that for probably 20 years. Big part of our lives, and a lot of fun. Next love, I think.
I was going to say, looking back at your career, mate, is there anything, if you had your time again, that you do different, or do you look back and say, well, I got the most out of the career that I had?
No, I don't think I got the most out. I think I probably needed a sports psychologist and a really good coach or trainer or something, because I getting motivated is one of the hard things in Europe. It's as you're a long way from home. You don't have family around to support you all that much or help you in the tougher times. So in hindsight, I would have probably got a bit of help from outside, but it's too late now. Still,
look, you had a great career, and you won stages in the Giro, in the Vuelta, Torino Adriatico, Tour de Suisse, but you also had a top 10 finish overall in the Giro. What year was that?
That was 85. So my team actually was concerned that I wasn't training hard enough, so they got me to move to another town, and it was a much better setup, and I had better training partners, and went out and trained a little bit harder, and actually went a little bit better. So
funny about that.
What do you think of the current standard of cycling? You still take an active involvement in the sport?
Oh yeah, I still keep an eye on what's going on. I didn't stay up last night and watch the race. I watched the highlights this morning. Pretty nice finish though. Pretty exciting. And still stay up and watch the stages sometimes, and keep a real good eye on it, or watch the highlights in the morning. And ride most days just to keep fit and a bit healthier. I love riding my mountain bike, although a bit wet at the moment, but still enjoy it.
I was going to mention the riding that you're still doing, Michael, because I follow you on Strava. So I guess, what do you miss about those days of racing? Because we had this conversation last night with the boys, and I said that, look, I don't really miss the competition, but on Strava, which is a new platform, there's an element of competition to that. So if it's trying to get a KOM versus other people, or just trying to get the best out of yourself and see how you go on a particular hill. What is it that you miss from back in those days of racing, and what do you enjoy about riding now?
Oh, look, Scott, I probably don't ride as much as you are at the moment, but
I've been on heaps. Yeah, that's true.
You're doing a little bit, yeah, which is good. But I think it's important that we keep in touch with that side of our lives, and I still enjoy racing, but probably in my grade, or you have to come to accept at some stage in life that you can't beat the young guys anymore. So I've accepted that, and I just ride in my grade or ride in my age group in the mountain bikes or whatever, and just have a bit of fun with it. And I enjoy that. I enjoy the competition still. So, love that side of it.
Okay, well, I'm going to have to accept that at some point as well, I guess. Yeah.
We're going to get there.
Have you got a tip for us for the Giro, mate? People always tune in to find out who they think's going to win on this show.
No idea. It's got to be an Australian with that many Australians in there, though. Who could have been?
Unfortunately,
that might be tough, yeah.
No, we haven't got an Aussie this time.
Hey, 2020, anything's possible.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's it. No, Richie did a good tour, so that's nice.
Definitely. Anything you want to add, Iffy, before we let Michael go?
No, just thank Michael for coming on board. You're a superstar, mate. And say hello to Mum.
All right, we'll do.
Good on you, Michael. Appreciate you being on the detour, mate. Cheers.
Cheers, mate.
Michael Wilson, legend of the sport. As we said, he's the first Aussie to win a stage at the Giro. And Iffy, now it's time to give the sponsors a bit of a plug, mate. So do your finest.
Happy to do that. Mitchelton Winery and Mitchelton Wines, a great sponsor. And that photo there, we're looking at the wonderful Mitchelton Hotel. So right in the banks of the Goulburn River, just out of Nagambie, and it is a sensational but absolutely glorious hotel. Beautiful swimming pool there, and a great restaurant. So you can have down there for breakfast. Beautiful lunches and dinner. And of course, and I mentioned it yesterday again, there's a wonderful downstairs Aboriginal art gallery, which is just to die for. It is absolutely amazing. And a beautiful spot, and wonderful wines, of course. The Mitchelton Heathcote Shiraz, one of my favourites.
They do eggs Benedict?
They certainly do.
Oh, I haven't had an eggs Benny for ages.
Do they still have the well, they've got the cafe still there, but they're still making chocolates out of.
No, you can still get chocolates there. They're not making them in there as they were, but they're still involved with that company. But I'll tell you what I had the other day. They had a kangaroo, like a steak tartare, kangaroo tartare. I don't know what it was called. It was absolutely amazing.
I think
really?
it's
You love your tartare.
No, I do know the term for that.
Roadkill.
Roadkill tartare.
Actually, kangaroo's the leanest meat in the world, or one of them. If you want a good lean, high in protein.
Beautiful.
Yeah, especially when it's been squashed by a truck. Yeah.
Alan says yes. John does the sponsors well. Good on you, John. You are getting very, very good at the Mitchelton plugs for sure. All right,
that was Skull, who came on the tour with us a couple of years ago.
Oh yeah. Why do they call him Skull?
Bald as a badger.
Okay. All right.
I thought he was a drinker.
Here's a quick word from our great mates at Bike Exchange.
Look at this bike. You think it's just a bike, right? But it's not. It's a bike. 374 people are looking at. This guy, this girl, them, all looking at it. People from here, there, and wherever this is. People that are looking for a bike. Or just a piece of it. Amateurs, semi-amateurs, and pro-amateurs. This guy wants this bike, but with this crank and these bars. This could be the perfect match. But not this one. This girl has a bike to sell, and thousands of people might purchase it. Eyes on Bikes help grow small businesses. His, hers, yours, and the latest data and insights help those businesses keep moving. We are the world's #1 bike marketplace, with over 500,000 products and 900 brands, where buyers and sellers are brought together in a place where a bike is never just a bike. Bike Exchange, where the world buys, sells, learns, and rides.
You know, it's a good ad is when you've seen it about 50 times now and it's still good. That's my honest opinion. So anyway, we caught up with Matt White as always, and he's pretty optimistic. Yates is the red-hot favourite for stage 3. So this is our chat with him earlier today.
A big one today, mate. You're onto the big Mount Etna, but you're climbing it from a different direction.
Yeah, we are. I'm not sure if they've actually ever used this side of Mount Etna before, but I came out here in December and had a look at it, and then we had a training camp with our Giro climbers in March. So it's a short stage. There's not too much flat in the stage, but it's basically only one major climb of the day. It's from the last time we did Etna, from the other side, it's probably a little bit more regular, and then it kicks up quite hard in the last 2.5 kilometers, and that's I think where you'll see some big splits. You'll see some splits amongst the best guys today.
I see Simon Yates is the favourite for the stage. How's he feeling mentally and physically?
Yeah, good, mate. He's relaxed. I said this because there's only one real climb today. I would think the likes of Geraint Thomas and alike, if Simon attacks in the final, we'll just stick to their pace and just try to limit their losses if Simon's on a good day. So I wouldn't expect too big a gaps between the big favourites, but I'm quite curious to see how Fool's Gang, Nibali, and Maker and those guys are today in their the first real test for the GC guys. It's not a big day, but it's one solid climb with a nasty finish on it.
We can be guaranteed of one thing. We can guarantee that Ghana won't be in pink by the end of the day.
You can. I think the young Portuguese kid Almeida will be going pretty hard to try to take the jersey today. He's only just got to finish in front of Geraint Thomas, and for us to take the jersey is probably quite hard today. And we don't necessarily want the jersey today because it's a long way to go, and there's some tough days coming up, and I'd rather be coming from behind this early in the race. But look, if we win the stage, so be it. But we'll just focus on that last 3 kilometres today, and the likes of Lucas Hamilton and Jack Haig controlling things up until then.
And it's always going through. Sorry, mate. We're just saying we were going through the team
all the time.
We're going through the team earlier, and we just look. You've got a really strong climbing support team in this one with all the Aussies who look really good.
No, we have. It's been the plan all year. We didn't divert from that plan once they changed the Giro and the Tour dates around. And Jack and Lucas have been building really nicely for this race, and you saw they were both moving very well in Tirreno a couple of weeks ago, with Jack finishing in the top 10 and Lucas winning a stage. And for us at the moment, everyone's good except Brent Wald was in a crash yesterday, and he's going to be probably a bit sore for a couple of days. But that's 3 big tours, and we'll just have to adapt until he comes good. You look at how Astana's started this race off with Lopez. Lopez out day 1, and yesterday their young Russian climbing star Vlasov was ill and he had to stop. So actually, Fuglsang got basically no support for the next 18 days. So it's 3 week races. You've got to adapt. But I'm really happy with the group I've got, especially with Lucas and Jack, and then Damien Howson, Australian champion Cam Meyer. We've got a great little group, and so far so good.
It's always a game of chess, these Grandies, particularly early on. Are you expecting any surprise moves from any of the other teams this early in the race?
Today, I don't think so. I just don't think there's too much of an opportunity to surprise anyone today. I think it'll be fast and pretty intense to get to the bottom of the climb. And the climb itself, I think what Ineos will want, knowing how Geraint Thomas climbs, they'll just want a consistent climb, and they'll probably use the likes of Castrovejo, maybe Rowan Dennis at the bottom slopes, and Teo Guggenhardt, just to keep a pace that will deter any big attacks from far. But I think the last 3 kilometres is where you'll see the fireworks today.
That was part 1 of our chat with Matt White. Part 2, as always, it's when we ask the really important questions. Before we let you go, mate, what was dinner last night?
Dinner was good. I had swordfish and had some very nice risotto.
And it looks like you got the presidential suite, mate. You got the drapes, you got the coffee table.
It's a big room. It's a big room, but it's as I say, the air conditioning unit wasn't working very efficiently last night, and I had to sleep with all the windows open, and got a few bites by mosquitoes overnight there, so I didn't have the best of sleeps last night. But you win some, you lose some. But this hotel would have been going off in the 50s and 60s, I think.
Just a quick one on last night's Liège-Bastogne-Liège. Firstly, a fantastic ride by Gracie Brown in the women's. She just ran out of road. She was storming home.
Yeah, look, I caught the last bit of the women's race just before our race started. It's a great ride from her and a real breakout performance. She's on a good vein of form at the moment, with 5th place in the World Championships and the time trial as well. And then in the men's race, that's a one for the books, that one. For us, our leader crashed, Adam Yates crashed out yesterday with Greg Van Aert and a couple of others. And then Nick Schultz was our best finisher in the 20s. I think he was at a minute 20, minute 30. He had a really good ride. But you saw the finish there with Alaphilippe, firstly hooking those other guys, and then thinking he won the race, so the double-handed victory salute, only to get rolled by Roglic in the end.
Unbelievable.
So, he's had some ups and downs this last month, Alaphilippe, hasn't he? He's taken the yellow jersey, then given the jersey away with a silly bottle change that gave us the yellow jersey. Then he's won the world title after that, and then he's given away Liège-Bastogne-Liège. So
yeah, I reckon if he hadn't Hershey, I reckon Hershey would have won it if he had, because he actually stopped him. And he was in the perfect, right on the wheel. So anyway, that's the way it goes.
He was certainly worried about him. He was certainly worried about Hershey, that's for sure.
All right, Bob,
mate,
fantastic,
all the best. Should be a cracker.
Yeah, thank you very much. We've got a one today, and then we're one more day on in Sicily, and then we're back on the mainland.
All right. Well, we're looking forward to what sort of dishes they serve up on the mainland too, mate.
All right, guys. Have a great day.
Good on you, mate.
Bye.
That was Mitchelton Scott Sports Director Matt White. Now, I've got a surprise for you boys. On our show, the Social Distance Podcast, we do a segment called Podcast Fishing, and that is when we throw out the bait live on the show. We don't know who's going to buy it, and I've actually got a nibble. It's Bills.
Hey, fellas.
How are you? Sam Billy. I knew he'd be back, Iffy. I knew he'd be back.
You can't keep me away from this, mate.
No.
Keep me away from a microphone.
That's it.
Sammy, good to see you, mate.
What's happening?
First of all, how are you healing up? How's the arm, the wrist?
Getting there, Iffy. It's just about a month now. A month tomorrow since I crashed. So yeah, it's been slow actually, slower than what I expected. But I am training on the road. Been on the road again for a couple of weeks, so at least I'm able to get some decent training done, and hopefully that'll allow me to get on the start line again at some point in the next few weeks before the season closes out. But yeah, we're getting there. We're getting there. Better than what I was last time. Yeah,
I believe Durbo's back in G-Town. Did you catch up with Durbo since he's got back from the TT Worlds?
No, I haven't seen him. He's in Andorra actually. He raced Bink Bank Tour straight after the Worlds, and then he went straight to Andorra. But he's back in a couple of days, so I'll catch up with him then.
Scotty, have you met Bills before?
I have met Bills before, mate. Yes, and we're being both former track cyclists. We're kindred spirits anyway. And you know, Sam, I don't know if you noticed this, but 4 out of the top 5 in the time trial at the World Championships this year were all trackies, like yourself. So
they were
taken over.
Yeah, and the problem with half those trackies is they're also winning bloody Tour de France's. So we really missed the boat, didn't we, Scotty?
yeah, we did, mate. Yeah, we did.
We were one horse ponies, one show ponies, or whatever you call
it. Scotty's dropped the phone.
I've dropped the phone.
It's rattled him.
Got excited.
I was going for a hand change. Hey, you mentioned you're hoping to get back on the start line. This is such a condensed season. Okay, obviously, crashes are unpredictable anyway. But with the wrist, it has to be pretty solid for you to start racing again. You don't want to do cobbles as first races. What do you think? What are the doctors saying? What's your timeline to get back on?
Yeah, that's the thing. There's only really 2 options. Like you say, with such a condensed season, obviously the Giro on at the moment, and then you're going to have the Giro overlapping with the Vuelta, the first week of the Vuelta, and the Classics, the Flemish Classics. So the teams are running pretty short on riders. So I'll probably be needed somewhere anyway, and I'd love to race. The Classics start in a few days, so I certainly won't be at the first ones, but I could be ready for the last couple. That'll be 6 weeks after the crash. But like you say, a broken wrist, even when it has healed, could be pretty niggly on the Roubaix cobbles. And the only other option is the Vuelta, and then that brings in a whole different aspect. You obviously have to have really good condition for a Grand Tour, even though it's only 18 days this year. It's still 18 days of racing, and it's a tough Vuelta, a really hard start this year. So, those are my only 2 options. There's 3 options: the Vuelta, the last couple of Classics, or no more racing at all. But I've told the team that I really, really want to be on the start line again. So we'll see how the form is, we'll see how the wrist is, and we'll probably have to make a decision in the next 10 days or so where I line up.
Oh, worst case scenario, you can really podcast your way through the back end of the year, mate.
That's it. And I do enjoy the podcasting, but I do enjoy racing my bike as well. So hopefully we'll be on one of the. I'll be on a start line somewhere, but I don't know where yet.
Well, we brought you in to really lift the mood up, mate. And what better way than the Detour DeLorean?
Roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads.
Now, we promised yesterday, we should have played it yesterday, but we didn't. The Liège from 2014, obviously amazing memories for the Orica Green Edge team. So here's a little snippet from that backstage pass where Simon Gerrans sealed a fantastic victory.
Giro's back good again because winning's taking him up, huh? Right. Clarky, look for Giro's coming up on your left-hand side. Giro's coming up on your left-hand side with Peter. Slows.
Come on, Wayne Dog.
There's Giro. This is perfect. We got over this. We're actually here. Go ahead, right. On the wheel.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Watch out, Simon. Go, Simon. Go. Come on, go.
Is Giro here? Yes. Come on. Yeah.
Come on. Go, Simon. Come on.
Yes. Yeah! We did it! Yes, Giro! Yes!
You dirty! You dirty!
Yes! 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 What the fuck?
Look, Dan, it's stuff of dreams. I mean, Liège-Bastogne-Liège, Milan San Remo. It's one of the monuments. You know, you look at the stages that we've won in the Tour de France. You look at this race here. It's never been won by an Australian, let alone an Australian team. And to be at the start line is something special. And to win it, and the way the guys rode as a team, the way they really committed, the way they stuck to the plan, was probably one of the better sporting moments I've been involved in. And then the last couple of kilometres, when I was explaining to Whitey over the phone, because he was in the car, and I was trying to explain what was happening, and I hope he understood, because I certainly didn't understand what I was saying. So it was quite special, and yeah, really proud of the whole team.
Unreal. Fantastic. Oh, mate, I don't know what to say. Dream come true. It's always said to win Liège, everything would have to go perfectly for me, and it did today. Really, the guys never lost faith. I was struggling a little bit there, about 30k to go, but they stuck by me, kept me up the front in all the right times in the perfect position, and I just buried it to stay in the front for the final, and followed the right guys and just had the sprint to finish the job off. So it's just a dream come true. I'll be pinching myself for a long, long time, I think.
Maybe it will be my
Can you believe that? Can you believe it?
Right.
How about that one?
Pleasure to work with you.
Can you believe it?
Great stuff. You always said best bike race in the world. And then everyone said, "Oh, Milan San Remo." I thought, well, you've won both.
Yeah, unbelievable memories. And it's true what he said. I remember 30k to go. I think he told the guys on the radio, "Look, I'm no good. I'm no good." And they're like, "Well, you know, we'll see how he goes and protect him." And I just remember that ride of Weendog Spills was huge to bridge that gap, bring him across. Yeah, fantastic memories, eh?
Mate, I'm surprised why he didn't knock the airbag out of the bloody front of that car and the dashboard that hard. No, that was pretty. I actually went for a ride with Giro yesterday. So he's in Girona at the moment. He's heading back to Australia in a couple of weeks, but it was good to catch up with him. We actually talked about Liège because obviously Liège was on yesterday. So yeah, no, that was one of the big moments. And we were talking about Albacini, obviously how Alba retired yesterday. Liège was his last race, and we were talking about how Alba got so close just a few years later when he was second. He was second in Liège. So it was cool to see him giving it a crack yesterday in his final outing as a pro bike rider, and his final outing with Greenedge as well. So yeah, emotional times all around at Liège.
That's it. Yeah. Liège. Now, fellas, who do we like for stage number 3? It's pretty obvious, isn't it?
Yes.
Who's going to be game to go, yeah, Yatesy won't win this? I'll go with one of the European challenges. Ulysses up there in the market as well. I think
it's a bit too long. I think it's a bit too long for Diego. He was great yesterday. He's brilliant in those, couple of Ks up to as it was his 7th stage win of the the Giro. But it's hard to pick, isn't it? Like, we can put all the odds on this, but this is the first test. This is where we get the form guide. How are people going? Yesterday's climb, wasn't hard enough for the big GC guys to be affected by it. We heard from Whitey, said Fuglsang needs to do something. He's got two of his main guys out now. So both Vlasov and Lopez have crashed out, and that would have been the best chance for him to help in the big mountains. So he's going to be on the back foot. Nibali, of course, it's his last day in Sicily. He's going to have a crack. And Geraint Thomas, the guy won the Tour de France a couple of years ago. On paper, he should be the first to the top of the hill. So who knows?
What do you reckon, Iffy?
No, I think on paper, Yates is first on top of the hill because they only go back a week into Torino Adriatico, and when the steep climbs, he just rode away from them, and I think he'll ride away from in the last 2K of this.
Ben Jensen wants to know, will Ben O'Connor keep up with the main GC favourites to the finish today?
I'd hope he does, but I don't think he will. I don't think at this level. Like, Ben won a stage of Tour of Austria, I think it was last year, Bills. So that shows he's a good rider. But this stage,
he rode well yesterday too. Yeah.
He had a good Giro in 2018. He was up around the top 10 until he crashed out on stage 19. But he's been pretty quiet since then. But so Etna's a funny one. It's such a long climb, and this year they're doing a different side, which arguably is an easier side. Although there's nothing easy about an 18K climb, but also the fact that it's so open, that climb as well. If it's a headwind, can change things a little bit. I think I agree with you, Scotty, that it's too long for Elise, but if it is a headwind, you never know. And Nibali, he's on his home roads. His last chance in Sicily. He is in the same boat as Fuglsang and Kreuzberg, where all three of those guys need to close a bit of time early because they lost over a minute to the other GC guys in the TT. So guys like Yates can afford to probably wait another week or two. But those guys need to start getting time back as soon as they can, I think. So, yeah, it'll be an interesting stage.
So you're predicting a shark attack, Bills?
Shark
right between the flags. Yeah. Vazzy J's got a good point, Iffy. Could Sam ride the Bay Classic?
Well, he's ridden it before. About time he came back, mate. Hey?
I'll have to see how the rest is.
Yeah, it's worth doing the 2 weeks quarantine. Make sure you get on the start line for sure.
Mate, if you can get me home without having to quarantine, I'll come and do the Bay Classics.
All right, I'll start working on it tomorrow.
You know people that can pull some strings in the government.
Yeah, we'll try and see what we can do.
We can quarantine you. You do 2 weeks up at Mitchelton Winery.
Yeah.
Could be bad for the career, but nice hotel.
He wouldn't turn up at the Bay Crits then, I know.
Yeah. Anything else you want to add before we go, lads?
Shout out to Harry Sweeney, young Aussie Harry Sweeney. We know that he signed next year with Lotto in the World Tour, but he won the under-23 Liège-Bastogne-Liège yesterday. So great ride for the young Aussie. Yeah, so under-23 run. It's they had the Roubaix, Liège, a couple of those different races for under-23. So it shows he's on the right trajectory and off to the World Tour next year as well. So good on him, Harry.
Yep. What about you, Bills? Want to send a shout out to your old man or anything like that before we go?
I don't know if he's watching. Nah, nothing. Just happy to be back talking to you boys. Good to see you, Scotty. Enjoyed it.
Yeah, you too, Bills.
Yeah.
I won't see you next year at the Sun Tour, unfortunately, but hopefully the year after.
We're already starting to think about what we can do for the year after. Yeah.
Perfect.
Maybe you can do a virtual Sun Tour.
Zwift one. It seems pretty popular these days, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. No.
Okay.
Good answer.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, boys, for another big show. We'll be back again 7:30 for previewing, hopefully, or recapping a victory from Yatesy. And yeah, we'll be previewing every night of the tour at 7:30. Till then, we'll see you tomorrow.